What makes America, America? Is it our ethnic heritage, our glorious human tapestry? Is it our religious heritage of spiritual freedom, our political heritage, democracy itself? No, it's our television heritage, preserved every night on Nick at Night.
The richest, most rewarding heritage a man can have.
These shows have made Americans what we are and will determine what we shall become. Nick at Night is preserving our precious television heritage. 250 million people in this country. 250 million different ideas of what it is to be an American. What makes us one? What keeps us together? What puts the United in the United States? It's television, our shared television heritage. And who protects and preserves that precious heritage? Nick at Night, affirming our common bond with the shows that mattered then, that matter today, and will matter tomorrow. Nick at Night is preserving our precious television heritage.
Episode 51 of The Dick Van Dyke Show was a milestone in our television heritage. It May Look Like a Walnut was a bizarre sci-fi alien parody and one of the first episodes directed by cast member Jerry Paris. Paris later went on to direct The Odd Couple and then Happy Days, where, inspired by the Walnut episode, he introduced an alien named Mork. Jerry Paris, part of our television heritage and The Dick Van Dyke Show, every night on Nick at Night. He's the doctor, he's the messenger, he's the beatnik, and he's part of our television heritage. Frank Adamo appeared in more bit parts than anyone on the Dick Van Dyke Show, from waiter to head waiter, from man to man. But those were minor roles compared to Frank's primary role off camera as Dick Van Dyke's personal assistant. So look for Frank Adamo, part of our television heritage and the Dick Van Dyke Show, every night on Nick at Night. After the first season of the Dick Van Dyke Show, the series became another ratings victim. It's part of our television heritage. But that's when Sheldon Leonard went to work. He staked his reputation to convince a reluctant CBS that the young cast had just hit its stride. And soon the cast, who had already thrown a farewell party, was back on the air. It's part of our television heritage and the Dick Van Dyke Show, every night on Nick at Night. Mary Tyler Moore's Capri slacks were a Laura Petrie trademark that set off a 60s fashion trend. It's part of our television heritage. Then, a CBS survey found that most women wore a dress while at home, and the star was forced to change. Viewers wrote in, complaining, until CBS compromised, allowing Mary Tyler Moore one scene each episode to wear Capri slacks. It's part of our television heritage and the Dick Van Dyke Show, every night on Nick at Night.
Television. The kids are bound to ask about it sooner or later.
Daddy, why is that woman wearing a bow in her hair?
Your kids deserve honest answers. After all, it's their television heritage, too.
Mommy, are you and Daddy ever in black and white?
Sure, television heritage isn't always easy to talk about. There are probably things even you don't understand.
This isn't a gun. This is my nephew's rubber duck.
Watch Nick at Night together, because if you don't talk to your children about television heritage, someone else will. Nick at Night is committed to preserving our television heritage. That means being committed to preserving the peace, committed to defending the environment, to recognizing those who are different, committed to maintaining the fabric of world unity, to respecting a woman's independence, to having the neighbors over, committed to television and its quest to better our world.
The world would be a lot better if everybody was committed.
Nick at Night, committed to preserving our television heritage for you, the TV generation. His resume is an encyclopedia of television. He is William Schallert, the hardest working man in our television heritage. Schallert was always a player, often a guest star, but never the star. But can anyone compare? He was Dobie's teacher, Patty's father, Max's admiral. He was a detective for Hitchcock, a priest for Rob and Laura. Nick at Night is where to find William Schallert. Nick at Night is preserving our precious television heritage.
He stood on a crate. She slouched. Why? It's part of our television heritage. Something strange was going on with Don Adams and Barbara Feldon during the Get Smart years. They tried to be subtle, but they kept changing heights. Sometimes she's taller. Sometimes he's taller. Here it's Feldon, but in the close-up, it's Adams again. The wide shot, however, doesn't lie. Sizing Adams up at 5'7", Feldon at 5'9". 2 subtle inches to look for in our television heritage. And Get Smart, weeknights on Nick at Night.
The opening sequence of the Mary Tyler Moore Show took a nothing day and made it part of our television heritage. The words and images that were chosen said it all. It was 1970, and the women's movement put Mary Richards at the wheel. An independent woman dealing with economics, work, men. Tossing away her hat, Mary put the past behind her, celebrating her new freedom. The opening changed through the seasons, but that final moment always remained. Nick at Night is preserving our television heritage. Female, 30 years old, and most of all, single. She's part of our television heritage. In 1970, Mary Tyler Moore and Grant Tinker were developing a new sitcom for CBS. Their big idea? To reflect the times and feature a truly independent woman. They proposed a divorcee, but CBS executives insisted on a broken engagement instead. Not only was divorce too hot to handle, they were afraid viewers would think she had left Rob Petrie. Nick at Night is preserving our television heritage.
Only 506 Nash Healeys were ever made, and one of them belonged to George Reeves. It's part of our television heritage. Superman could fly, but Clark Kent had to drive. So when the script called for Clark to drive a car, George Reeves decided to use his own. The 1953 Roadster was given to him by a lady friend. George and Clark drove that beloved convertible all the way from black and white to color. George Reeves Nash Healey. It's part of our television heritage and Superman. Weeknights at 8:30, 7:30 Central on Nick at Night. Clark Kent's glasses. They're part of our television heritage. As Superman's disguise, those horned-rimmed specs became a symbol of Clark's identity. To avoid camera glare, though, the frames were worn without lenses. But by the last season, George actually needed a prescription, so lenses were put back in. The light may have reflected a bit, but once again, our hero could see where trouble lurked and continued to protect and preserve our television heritage. Look for Clark Kent's glasses on Superman. Weeknights at 8:30, 7:30 Central on Nick at Night.
Is that for real? Only her hairdresser knows for sure. And the answer is part of our television heritage. Her hairdresser did say, the hair may be brown, but her soul is on fire. Born a brunette, Lucy's hair color changed often in her early movie career. From blonde to brown and finally red in The Affairs of Annabelle. When Lucy moved to television, viewers took it on faith that she was indeed a carrot top. America got its first television view of her true color on The Lucy Show. Part of our television heritage every night on Nick at Night. She was the scatterbrained redhead.
Why can't you wait till I stop talking?
He was the aggravated boss.
We don't want the game to be called on account of dark.
It was My Favorite Husband, the radio show that's a part of our television heritage. When Lucy moved to TV, she wanted Gail Gordon to play Fred Mertz on I Love Lucy, but he was unavailable.
What?
The Lucy Show brought them back together at last. Mr. Mooney and Lucy on The Lucy Show, part of our television heritage, every night on Nick at Night. When it came to the sponsors, Hitchcock got away with murder. It's part of our television heritage. In his introductions, Hitch would constantly joke about the upcoming commercials. One sponsor, Bristol-Myers, complained until a flood of mail convinced them that viewers admired them for being such good sports. The result? The joke stayed in.
And almost everyone lived happily ever after.
Poking fun at the sponsor. Part of our television heritage on Alfred Hitchcock Presents, weeknights on Nick at Night. Who was Hitch's favorite leading lady? It's no mystery. It's part of our television heritage. Over the years, Hitchcock brought hundreds of actresses to the small screen. Some were established stars, others were just starting out. But only one actress had the distinction of appearing in 8 different episodes in several of his films. Why?
I thought the little leading lady was rather good, didn't you?
Good or not, she was Alfred's daughter, actress Pat Hitchcock. Now a part of our television heritage on Alfred Hitchcock Presents, weeknights on Nick at Night.
You want real police drama? Go to Real Police Officers. Their stories are part of our television heritage. The stories on Dragnet were true. Officers would submit story ideas from their patrol reports. If an idea was used, the officer received $50. Technical advisors ensured that the gun, the badge, even the telephone on Joe's desk were authentic. Dragnet was so realistic, citizens would come down to police headquarters and ask to meet Sergeant Friday. The standard reply at the front desk, sorry, it's Joe's day off. Nick at Night is preserving our television heritage. Friday, gray jacket, navy pants, white shirt, blue tie. Gannon, dark gray suit, white shirt, blue tie. The dress code of Dragnet. It's part of our television heritage. Whether it was making a bust or making small talk with a lady friend, Joe and Bill wore the same suits in every episode of Dragnet. This conservative wear not only kept the wardrobe budget to a minimum, but also ensured the scenes were always cut together in editing. Of the 98 color episodes of Dragnet, only 5 contain scenes in which you'll find Joe out of uniform. Nick at Night is preserving our television heritage.